Stephen Levine, a hospice counsellor who spent his life helping people come to terms with death, once said something like this. He also asked a question that stuck with me. If you were going to die in a year, what would you do differently? Now imagine the question isn't what would you do differently, but simply, would you even want to know? Let's say you could find out exactly when you'll die, down to the day, maybe even the hour. Would you check? A 2013 study in psychological science found that most people actually wouldn't. Given the choice to know the date of their death or not, the majority said they'd rather not. And when asked why, the answer wasn't fear of death, it was fear of living wrong. That knowing would either ruin life by making it too real, or paralyze them into over-planning every moment, turning life into a countdown instead of an experience. But for some people, knowing sounds like control, like clarity. Someone tells you you've got 18 years left, or 6, or 74 days. Every choice becomes sharper, more impactful. Do you waste time scrolling right now? Do you call someone you've been avoiding? Do you quit that 9 to 5? Maybe you'll stop imagining scenarios in your head hoping they come true and actually try to make the most of it. Steve Jobs once said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." He wasn't just being poetic, he really lived like that. Every day was filtered through that lens of urgency, and for him, it didn't shrink life, it sharpened it. A deadline forces action, it demands honesty. Maybe knowing makes life more alive. There's a story about a Japanese Zen master who would wake up every day and say out loud, "Today I may die." Not as a fear tactic, but as a way to strip away the bullshit. That daily reminder wasn't depressing, it was freeing. It made everything count. Every bite of food, every conversation, every walk outside. If you knew time was short, you'd probably stop treating it like it's endless. But do you want that pressure? There's a movie called Countdown where people download an app that tells them exactly when they'll die. Like, you have 2 days, 4 hours and 11 minutes. Some people try to change their fate, but the more they try to mess with it, the worse things get. They start being haunted. The knowledge itself becomes the thing that kills them in the end. It's kind of like the myth of Oedipus. The Greek king learns that he's destined to kill his father and spends his life trying to avoid it, only to walk right into it. Sometimes, the attempt to change the ending becomes the reason it happens. In a way, that's not so far from how we really work. There are real medical cases of something called psychogenic death, where someone gives up on life simply because they believe death is near. It's been seen in prisoners of war, survivors of disasters, people diagnosed with terminal illness. The mind decides the end is near and the body follows. That's why people tend to encourage terminally diagnosed patients to not give up or lose hope, since that surrender alone is harmful. In the 1940s, a Harvard researcher documented cases of what he called voodoo death, where people believed they were cursed and simply died. No illness, just belief. That's the terrifying power of a mind that's convinced the end is near. Knowing when you'll die could be a relief, or it could be a curse that rewrites every moment from now till then, like suddenly seeing your life as a tunnel and you're being pushed to the end. And yet, what's the alternative? Having your eyes closed? Living in ignorance? Because let's be honest, we're all dying, just not on a schedule we can see. And weirdly, not knowing almost gives us permission to waste time, to assume we have more, that there will always be a next year, a next vacation, a next conversation. Not knowing lets us live like we're immortal, until one day we're not. There's a concept in psychology called temporal discounting. It means we tend to value short-term rewards more than long-term ones, because the future always feels far away, vague. It's why people procrastinate. It's why we say, "I'll start next week," even when we know better. When death is just a rumour, life is a negotiation. But when death is a number, life becomes a decision. I actually talked about this briefly at the end of the Cognito Hazards video. The idea that maybe knowing when you die should count as a cognitive hazard, because once you know, you can't unknow. It changes the way your brain treats reality. You can't watch the clock without feeling it, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because sometimes, knowing too much breaks the game. So picture this. You wake up one day and someone says you have 23 years, 7 months and 12 days. What do? Do you start living fully, or do you start panicking? Do you build the life you want, or do you mourn the years you'll never see? What if it said 3 years, Would you move to a new country? Would you marry someone? Would you finally write the thing you've been putting off? But if you would do those things given a deadline, why aren't you doing them now? That's the core of the whole dilemma. Even if you don't want to know when you'll die, thinking about it makes you realize you've been acting like you do. Like there's enough time to do so and so. Like you'll know when to get serious, but you won't. Life doesn't cue dramatic music towards the end, it just stops. That said, the option to knowing how you'll die is a whole different story. It sounds lighter, less existential, but in some ways it's even more insidious. Let's say someone tells you you'll die in a car accident. You could live another 60 years, or you could die next week. But suddenly, every time you're near a car, you're wondering, is this it? That knowledge becomes a filter. You stop living in the present and start scanning for patterns. You avoid highways, you panic when you hear screeching tires. Even if the actual event is decades away, the fear lives with you now. In real life, this plays out as health anxiety. People who learn they have genetic risk of heart disease or Alzheimer's or cancer, sometimes it helps. They take precautions, they change their habits, but sometimes it just makes them sick with waiting, because every headache becomes a symptom, every chest tightness becomes a warning, and the life they're trying to protect gets buried under the fear of losing it. There's also something called anticipatory grief. It's the pain of loss before the loss happens. People experience it when someone close is dying, but it also happens internally when you know your time is limited, but you're still here. That grief can be heavier than the thing itself. Knowing how you die doesn't always help you avoid it. Sometimes it just helps you see it coming, slowly and painfully. But again, what's the flip side? Not knowing at all? Ignorance might feel like peace, but it can also breed carelessness. We build our lives like we'll never leave. We waste time like it's refillable, and sometimes pretending we've got forever is exactly what keeps us from doing anything real. It lets us believe in invincibility, that we're somehow the exception, that death is something that happens to other people, until it isn't. Until you realize accidents happen, life's just too hectic to predict. So, does the question in the title even have answer at this point? Whether it's when or how, knowing doesn't guarantee wisdom. Not knowing doesn't guarantee freedom. It's about what that knowledge, or lack of it, does to you. You could spend your life trying to outrun the clock, or you could stop treating life like something you'll get around to. The irony is, we can know more than we think. Statistically, you probably won't make it to 100. If you're male, your average lifespan is around 70-75. If you're female, closer to 80. That gives you a range, a bracket. But even that's slippery, because averages aren't promises. Some people live to 102, some don't make it to 40. The real unknown is the texture between now and then. So maybe the smarter question is, would knowing actually change anything? And if it would in your case, then maybe that's your answer already, or rather your wake-up call. Because at some level we do know, we just pretend not to. And pretending costs us more than we think. So no, most people don't want to know, but maybe we should act like we do. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's real. And because reality has a deadline, whether we can see it or not.